on Horry County's Walk America on April 28th, this morning's guest is going to walk twice as hard. Want to know why? You'll find out coming up next on Carolina People. Good morning. Welcome to Carolina People. This morning we're at Keller Williams Realty, Myrtle Beach Central, the home of Team Whiteman. We're focused on the Horry County March of Dimes Walk America, which will be held on Saturday, April 28th. And we're visiting with the chair of the marketing of the department. It's a big title. Golly, Mark. Professor Mark Mitchell, the chair of the marketing Management, Marketing, and Law in the Wall College of Business. Forgive me, I always get caught up with long titles, and clearly there's a lot that goes into your position there at Coastal. You're a busy cat.
There's a style of leadership known as servant leadership. In essence, I'm successful by helping other people be successful. So there's 20 folks I work to support. So we're responsible for management programs, we're responsible for marketing programs, we're responsible for resort tourism management programs. So if we put our students in a position to be successful, if we put our faculty in a position to be successful, our staff's in a position to be successful, ultimately then I will have done my job.
Yes, servant leadership, I like that. That's great. That's great. Is that something that was come about years ago, or is that something that's been around very recently?
The paradigm is, well, Ken Blanchard amongst others. Ken Blanchard is one of my favorite leadership authors. The 1 Minute Manager is a book by Ken Blanchard.
Right.
And Ken Blanchard, it appears, went through kind of a religious awakening and realized all these leadership things I've been teaching, golly, there's a role model in the Bible. And biblical passages of Jesus as a servant.
Right.
And then Ken Blanchard kind of looking at the kinds of things I've been teaching, the kinds of things I've been consulting on. Wow, look at this over 2,000-year-old reference and example. And so that's amongst the basis for servant leadership. But I think if you accept the fact that too often organizations are a pyramid and the leader's at the top, servant leadership suggests you change that pyramid and that leader is right here working to support the efforts of others.
Very nice.
If I do it well, then other folks do their roles best.
In large corporate America, is that something that can be done? Is that something that a leader at the top of a Fortune 500 company can be a servant leader?
I'll give you a great example from just a few weeks back.
Yeah.
Dan Cathy is the president and chief operating officer of Chick-fil-A. There are a few restaurants
Truett
not
Cathy's
far
son,
from where we are. Truett's son, Mr. Truett. Truett, by the way, some great books if you've never read his books. There's some interesting reads by Mr. Cathy. One written by and with Ken Blanchard talking about this businessman that seems too good to be true. Used parables. Well, it's Mr. Cathy's story, really. But we're at Carolina Forest Community Church, where they're starting to do a once-a-quarter leadership program.
Right.
The first one kicked off a few weeks back, and Dan Cathy was the speaker.
Wow.
And I'm sitting there with some folks, and I said, I wonder if people appreciate the irony of what's going on over there. I said, what do you mean? Look at that, what you think of as this nondescript gentleman. Folks are eating lunch provided by Chick-fil-A, a box of Chick-fil-A.
Right.
There's this gentleman walking around and picking up trash off of people's tables.
Right.
That is your speaker, Dan Cathy.
Right.
His teammates, his owner-operators, are out and about this audience, helping them to have a good day, helping them to enjoy his product.
Right.
And here they are serving others. They're very much a servant-oriented, service-oriented company. And so, would have been much easier, I guess. Dan Cathy sitting there having lunch with folks while his teammates, while his associates, yes, they are his employees. Let them wait on the guests while I have a nice lunch here and catch up with old friends. It's not his style. His style was, let's all get in together, and collectively these are our guests. So he's trying to model servant behavior. He's not trying to ask his team to do anything that he wouldn't do himself. So it really is a philosophy. Put people in a position to be successful, support their efforts, and ultimately, they don't work for you. You work for them.
I love that, Mark. And not to take anything away from large franchise operators, one of the big benefits there in the Chick-fil-A mantra, that mindset, is that it's one. You're really focused on one establishment, one location, as opposed to picking up 40 or 50. And again, not to take anything away from large operators like on the Strand, the Polici family, who own 10, 11, 15 McDonald's. but at the same time, being able to focus on one and all the folks that come in that one location.
That's what Mr. Cathy says. You work your restaurant in your community, and if you have too many restaurants for his system, he's just fearful that you can't give the folks the attention that they deserve.
That's great. Good on. I'm glad you mentioned that on servant leadership. And of course, our focus today is on the Horry County chapter of the March of Dimes and the Big Walk America that's coming up at your university, Coastal Carolina Walk America University, Saturday, April 28th, getting real close, Mark.
We're very excited. We know, again, this is a walk that had been held for the longest time at the Pavilion.
Right.
Of course, the transformation of the Pavilion needs a new home.
Yes.
There are a number of places they could have gone, and they've chosen Coastal Carolina University, and we're thrilled. David Bennett, our football coach, is our honorary walk chairperson. Again, Coach Bennett has had a prematurely born child, as one of his assistant coaches had a prematurely born child. We're inviting these guests to campus. Well, everything's new. Talk to Joe Fisher, our executive director of the March of Dimes. You know, everything, there was a way it was always done at the Pavilion. So now all of those, all that learning has to be transferred to Coastal, and a new way of doing things, or a new place to do the same things that you've done. New walk route, new place for hospitality, new place for check-in, new place for parking, new place, new opportunity, amongst other things. Imagine after the event, we're going to have kids from Horry County walking on our campus after a nice 3-mile track throughout our entire campus. Then those same kids are going to be on our football field with Coach David Bennett and his athletes for a punt, pass, and kick competition.
Punt, pass, and kick.
So they may have been in the stands as my kids and watched those athletes down there. Now they're going to be the one kicking off. Or a kid who has yet to come to a Coastal football game. They're walking around campus, they see those teal seats, they're wondering, man, this is pretty neat. They might just tell a parent, hey, I think I'd like to go catch a Coastal game next fall.
So, wow, not to commercialize the idea, but absolutely, it's a great way to get folks out there.
The mindset of a university is we are a public institution. We serve our community. We want to invite folks onto campus at all possible times. They get familiar with us. They get comfortable with us. Someday they might be students. They might be employees. Who knows? Who knows what it is?
It might be board members, the chairman of the board,
They might be the future president of Coastal many years from now.
Might
be a youngster,
or even a professor like
Horry
yourself.
County right
That's
now.
right.
Absolutely.
That's a very good point. Another instructor from Coastal was with us earlier this week, Jerry Faust. It was so exciting hearing him talk about all the things that are happening out of the university. It's amazing.
And, you know, we talked about servant leadership earlier. David DeCenzo will be our president beginning this summer. I will certainly tell you that Dave DeCenzo sees his work as a servant leader. I recall when I came to Coastal, the last question I asked Dave in that interview process, I need to know that you're going to take responsibility for my professional development. That's what servant leaders do. And his response, absolutely. And that gives you that comfort zone that, you know, we each have roles, but the person that I'm going to work with and work for ultimately, if you look at the organizational chart, but I prefer the term work with, that they're accepting that responsibility for you. So when you accept the responsibility for each other, that's a pretty special environment.
And that's a big responsibility as well, Mark. I mean, that puts a lot of not potentially added pressure, but that sure puts a lot of pressure on, because that person has really got to be focused on every person within their organization, as opposed to just making sure that their top management is doing a great job working throughout the organization.
You have to learn to trust people. By no means do you say you don't hold folks accountable, but what you do is what do we need to do? What's the target? What resources are needed? What processes are needed? Let's bring those together. Let's help you do those things, you know, achieve those outcomes. When you did well, make sure you understand why. When things didn't go as planned, make sure you understand why. Learn from those. Keep moving forward. You know, the other day I watched a video at the theater with my kids, Meet the Robinsons. It's a G movie out, Disney, and at the end of the movie they have a quote by Walt Disney. Beautiful quote, and to paraphrase it, we keep moving forward. It's a big theme of the movie. We keep moving forward because we're curious, and that curiosity leads us down new paths. I work at a university. I'm supposed to be curious. I'm supposed to wonder about the unknown, wonder about ways to do things better. In my discipline, well, that's largely the approach I think of my campus. We're entrepreneurial. We want to find ways to do things better do things well and to make sure we do that day in and day out.
How exciting. And that applies as well to our big event on April 28th. As you say, not only changing a location, but working hard to make it better, to generate more dollars, a $293,000 goal, a lot of dollars that need to happen between that have started even a year ago, getting ready for April 28th, and of course the success of events like Forest Brook Elementary and their walk, which brought in almost $35,000.
Incredible.
Folks think, oh, well, maybe it's over now. You got schools doing that kind of money. It is not.
It's not. It's kind of one of those things where we want to finish strong.
Right,
and
right.
we hope that we're doing just that. You know, I think of servant leadership as just universal. Privileged to serve on the board of the March of Dimes. What is our role? To put volunteers in a position to be successful, to put teams in a position to be successful, to help put those kids at Forest Brook Elementary and Forest Brook Middle and St. James Elementary and Socastee and South Conway and Ainer, on and on and on. Do what we can do to help those teams be successful. When they're successful, they'll raise dollars for the March of Dimes that we then are able to use for families and those kids. So I think it's a universal phenomenon.
That is wonderful. It is a great circular pattern there, and being able to find, and as Colleen shared with us a couple of weeks ago, you never know which child will be impacted and which child will become a researcher and which child may be a medical professional or even work as a teammate or an associate of the March of Dimes and be involved in trying to make a difference in the fight against prematurity. This is something that's impacted your life personally, Mark.
Well, I'll pick up on that theme. You just never know. You're going through a pregnancy. You have the ultrasound. They say, I remember the day they said, are you in the mood for a surprise? No, I don't think so. And they tell you twins. And so my wife Sheila will say, I was giddy the rest of the day. Maybe just excited yet probably terrored at the same time, thinking, oh my goodness, what twins? This is a big deal.
Yeah.
But you're cruising through a pregnancy. You know, you got your physician doing, taking your ultrasounds and monitoring all the normal things. And I remember from our standpoint, the physician said, well, we're not sure what's going on. We're getting moving on one child, not on another. We're thinking, ooh, again, we're just moving along. Things are going okay. You just never know. And they put us on a bed rest, and you're thinking, okay, this could happen now or could happen later. You just never know. 1 in 8 kids now are born early.
Right.
24 kids today in South Carolina. I think it's, what's the number, 8,000 per year in the state of South Carolina?
That's right.
So you really, I mean, one of those things where you never know who's going to grow up to be what. Golly, you never know when you're in the middle of a pregnancy if it's going to be a full term. I had a conversation just the other day with one of my students at Coastal. Told me he thinks there could be twins, and now they will not be. There'll be one child, and they're excited about this pregnancy. And I remember finishing that visit, and I said, now my next wish for you is a full-term pregnancy and a healthy child. They may be at let's say they're at the 10, 15-week, 20-week mark.
Right.
Well, I want you to get to 36.
Yes.
They can handle 26, 27, 28, 30 weeks thanks to the March of Dimes.
Yes, yes.
It'd sure be nice if the work we do at the March of Dimes would be less needed. That means that, much like polio, you've made the problem go away, and you can shift the focus to something else.
Wouldn't that be great? Yes, yes. We're all working towards that. All the volunteers and all the donors and all the supporters and everyone who pulls a dime out of their pocket and anything more than that or writes a check and says fill in the blank.
Some of the schools do change for babies. Basically, they'll put buckets. Fast food restaurants, a bucket of chicken. So they'll take that paper bucket, and they'll just place it places. And folks just take their change. Well, again, those dimes added up once before. Those dimes continue to add up. That person that doesn't have a lot of giving capacity, and they give you $5, $10, that's a much different gift than that person that has a very large giving capacity and gives you that $10 bill.
Gives you the same $10
Absolutely.
bill. Mark, if a viewer needs to get family off to school or get off to work now, is the 488-3463 number the best?
That's
okay.
Right. 488. Now, that gets you to the March of Dimes PD Division. Joe Fisher, the executive director.
Right.
We're excited about that. And marchofdimes.com,
Marchofdimes.com, but walkamerica.org. That's right.
Walkamerica.org and marchofdimes.com. Two
Absolutely,
places.
That's right.
Available.
That's right. I haven't even taken the time to go see if it's marchofdimes.org. You'd have to think it is as well, but it is marchofdimes.com. But if folks want to go there, to set up the team, walkamerica.org/South Carolina.
That's right.
And I think you can get right in there. And the only reason I know it is because Joe was saying it last week, and Franklin Long was saying it, and of course Brian Simpson earlier this week. It is so important to think about the web as a vehicle to make donations.
They tell you that teams that use the web to support their efforts out-earn teams, of course, that do not. There's some folks that's just they do their life is a web life, if you will.
Yes,
and they're just more comfortable with that. Many folks aren't, for a variety of reasons. So we appeal to them in a different way.
Sure, but the donations online are secure.
Donations online are very, very secure. Absolutely. So if you feel better participating in an event, for instance, some folks, in a couple weeks we have one of our teams from Coastal at Sonic Restaurants, and folks who are not typically in the food industry will be the runners. They'll be the wait staff there at the Sonic. So they'll bring you that coney that you may have for lunch or for dinner that day, but then they'll be accepting donations for the March of Dimes. So some folks like to participate in those. Some folks like to write a check or give a couple dollar bills. May want you to know they've done it, or may prefer to have you not know that they did it. They prefer to do it anonymously for their heart. There's a variety of ways folks can and will participate.
Share with viewers a little more, Mark, about y'all's personal. Of course, you and your wife, you began to talk about the student there and the full term, and making sure that student understood the significance of the prayer that their child would go full term. For you and your bride, and of course your daughter, as you recognized that, and of course she was too young to know, but that y'all were going to have twins, the excitement therein. What was the course of y'all's pregnancy?
At about 29 weeks, they tell us we have something called twin-to-twin transfusion syndrome. To put it in layman's terms, as I understand it, imagine there's, you and I are sharing a food source. You start eating more than me. On one hand, you think, golly, I'm going to starve because you're not eating? If you eat too much, your body can't handle it. That's exactly what occurred for us in a nutshell. Basically, you have two children. One is being starved by the other. They're competing for food. They compete every day now as 6-year-olds. So we joke, golly, you guys started competing long before you even arrived. The one who is getting too much nourishment, his system can't handle it. And at some point, they used the heart failure. It was really they saw early signs of heart failure in my one child, who was getting more than his fair share of nourishment. And so the one who has been starved a bit turns out to actually be the healthier, and the one that is overeating is in danger. So I remember clearly, I was out and about the hospital, and I can't remember how they got in touch with me, but get back here, this is happening. Scrub you in, and boom, 11:49, child A is born, 11:50, child B is born. They take them right away from you. This was at 30 weeks, 30 and a half weeks, I think. They're whisked away right to the NICU. You don't see them for a while. In my case, then, I'm able to go into the NICU, and once you get them stabilized, the one was resuscitated. Then my wife doesn't even get to see them for a while. So they took some Polaroids. This is probably more pre-digital. They took some Polaroids, and we still have those, which I could then go and take to my wife in the recovery room. And then we go through a 50-week process. 50 days.
Right.
50-day process, 7+ weeks.
Right.
And that is, we are fortunate as well. In this area, if our children were born today like that, they would be in Florence. And I live in the South Strand, so we'd have 90-minute commute each way to go see our kids. I lived in Spartanburg at the time, Spartanburg Regional. I could be parked within 10 minutes at the hospital seeing my kids. 50 days of wondering, 50 days of kind of highs and lows. We're gaining weight, we didn't gain weight today. Is there a bigger thing here? My kids had something called RSV as well, which to you and I is a really bad cold. To a newborn child born early, it can be fatal. Thank goodness they were able to combat that as well. So 50 days where you're watching these nurses give of themselves. You see how it doesn't just affect the kids, it affects the families.
Yes.
It affects you in that period, of course, but then longer term, it certainly affects you. When the folks at the March of Dimes say, would you like to help us? Absolutely you'd like to help, because you see what help they've provided you. It's in some small way in giving back to help others so they don't have to go through what you went through.
They called y'all, Brian Simpson early on Monday in the week was saying that the day of the birth of his son, the March of Dimes, was calling. Not only saying, what can we do to help, but here are some of the things we can do to help. Here are some of the things, because he shared so speechless at that time, not knowing what's going on and feeling so helpless.
Again, it's a matter, you walk into a room and you know absolutely nothing. And it's not like you walk in with some sort of preconceived notion.
Right.
We knew for my first child what a normal, healthy pregnancy looks like. We didn't know what a high-risk pregnancy, we didn't know we even had one till about 29 weeks. And then within that week, not only we go from pregnancy to early childbirth. And I didn't know, candidly, again, I didn't know for me. I knew of the March of Dimes and polio.
Right.
I knew of the March of Dimes hoping to combat and helping to combat birth defects.
Right.
I did know at the time prematurity was such an issue, it hadn't affected my family.
Sure.
I didn't realize the numbers, and they are climbing. I didn't know it was 1 in 8. Many years ago, it wasn't 1 in 8. So we have this problem with premature birth. And again, if you think about it, today, 24 kids across our state are going to land in the NICU. And those
On
NICUs
average,
wouldn't
that's
be there
exactly
without
right.
this
Yes.
organization. Their ongoing funding and support wouldn't be there. So what would those families do without it?
And unfortunately, that terrible thing is just a couple of years ago, we were using a 22 figure.
Yeah.
22 births. And
That's
so to
exactly
think,
right.
even though the March of Dimes has been working so much harder to get the word out, the prevalence is
Problem
increasing.
is growing greater and greater.
It is
and greater.
terrible when you think about that, and the real need to be a part of making that call. You said the number again,
488-DIME.
488-DIME or 3463, or go visiting walkamerica.org/South Carolina. Tremendous information on there for expectant mothers if they haven't gotten that call early on, or if they haven't talked to their medical professional about some of the things they need to be thinking about. There's a lot of great information on the internet at marchofdimes.com. Just some great facts and figures, not only for expectant mothers but also fathers, and the issue for you.
It absolutely affects the family. I
Right.
mean, it's you're a team. You're in it together.
Yeah.
And I recall my wife saying the one time, "Boy, how do we get through this?" Or "I don't know if we can get through this." Well, we don't have a choice. You have these 2.5-pound babies sitting in the hospital, and it's probably one of those events for me in your life. I have a friend who's going through some real challenges within their family right now, and I know there have been times where that person has said, "Boy, we really have been through a lot. Didn't think I could get through this. Didn't think we'd be able to sustain ourselves and survive," and they have. So it's one of those things where you're faced with a big challenge,
Right.
and you work to overcome it, and then within time, God willing, you will.
Yes. 2 weeks ago, Mark, you made a presentation to a big group of the team captains from around the county, getting ready for the big event on April 28th. We just got a couple of minutes, and of course you were blessed to have your 2 boys there with you, your twin sons, Casey and Christian, and for folks to be able to see them live time.
That was the key.
At the same
was the
time,
key,
they
yeah.
saw your PowerPoint presentation, which a lot of the faculty and staff and students at Coastal Carolina
all
have
seen
been
it too.
seeing,
Yeah.
which is great. A tremendous 24-slide presentation there. Share with viewers real quick about what prompted you to do that and the significance of the slides.
I mean, truth being, I'm a salesperson going back to my professional life before I came to Coastal,
Right.
before I came into higher education. And I know that seeing is believing. I know the more senses I can appeal to for my buyers,
Right.
the more likely they'll understand what we're doing. We can grab them. So those visual images.
Yeah.
Again, a bag of apples weighed more than my kids. So people think, yeah, 3 pounds. Oh, okay. You talk about how long are they? Well, here's a piece of paper, 8.5 by 11. They're just a little bit longer than that sheet of paper. So you're trying to give people visual images and context.
Right.
So trying to use pictures. Here's where they were. Here's where they are. Then it was neat to say, here's where they were in a picture.
Right.
Here's where they are in a picture. And then, boom, here they are today. Here's
Right.
the living, breathing little boy. And
Right.
you get closure.
Yeah.
And that's very important.
That is. Those are great words. Mark, thanks so much for being with us
Thank
this morning.
you. Thank you.
Absolutely. Stay tuned to more Carolina People with Professor Mark Mitchell coming up next. If you've been watching any of the TV stations recently, you would have seen that public service announcement with Coach Bennett right there on the field. Some ambassador babies, some ambassador families, our Walk America chairman, his assistant coach, Ken Hunter, and Ken's family sitting right there, right out on the field. Coastal Carolina Walk America University. You heard him say those clear words, with your support and prayers, there's hope. With your support and prayers, there's hope. You know, we're talking about servant leadership. We hear Professor Mitchell, Mark, talking about God willing, and God's gotten involved in this, but also volunteers and efforts of so many to make a difference for the March of Dimes, and all the babies and the families and the extended families and the medical professionals that deal with prematurity and births. You heard Professor Mitchell talk about it. 24 babies on average. Yesterday may have been 36, today may be 12, but on average 24 babies will be born in South Carolina prematurely today. On average that would be 1 an hour. Think about that. It's about 7:30 now. 7 babies, maybe even 1 occurring right now up in Abbeville or down in Hilton Head or up in Darlington or Hartsville. It's occurring, and it's impacting not only that baby, not only his or her parents, but so many others. Prematurity is a real issue. You can make a difference. You can be a part of the March of Dimes Walk America on Saturday, April 28th. Pick up the phone. You heard him say it. The phone number is simple, 488-DIME, D-I-M-E. That's 488-3463. Pick up the phone or go online to walkamerica.org/South Carolina.